So maybe Raj, you want to talk about if there are any incentives, that you guys have structurally built, or indirectly you feel people come for that.
That's a fantastic question. As I've been saying throughout, zero money involved. Zero money involved whether we receive anything or we give anything. Our entire distribution channel has been built on absolutely zero marketing dollar. एक भी पैसा हमने खर्च नहीं किया इसमें. So that essentially means that for the volunteers who come in, there is absolutely no expectation of any monetary gains happening. But what you do end up offering are two huge things which a lot of people would love to really have, but then they struggle a lot. Number one, social capital. So now if you think about it, everyone wants to essentially be heard, and the best way to be heard is when you have a set of followers who want to, let's say, engage with you in your tweets, LinkedIn posts, YouTube videos, etc., etc. So we essentially let our volunteers have a go at building up their own brand by having AJVC as, let's say, the base from where they start. For many people, that's immense because they're not starting from scratch now. They come with a huge credibility, and that's the entire AJVC brand mapping. The next thing that we give them is a complete ownership on a product that they feel is going to add value to the entire startup ecosystem. And the value addition is not just limited to India. If it is good enough, it gets recognized across the world. Just for instance, one of our products, Startup Concept, actually was a product of the day at Product Hunt, and it got shortlisted in the top 5 products across, I think, the education category in all of the entries in that particular year. So it's just massive, the amount of impact at scale that you can create. And that's something which you offer to each and every new fellow that comes on board. But at the end of the day, it all depends on how much effort you're putting in, because there is no freelance. So that's those are the two things that we offer our fellows who end up being a part of us.
Okay, moving on to Gautham. Would love to know how do you see incentives being worked out at Head Start?
So with volunteers, we've never, again going back to Raj, right? It's about 14 years we've never dealt with money, because you really can't evaluate a person's contribution with money. Let's say Suhas is contributing to us for something. I can't give him, say, $5,000 in an Amazon voucher and say you are amazing. He will say, boss, to us I'm worth 25,000 rupees per hour, right? So what happens is, end of the day, money is what you get valued by in your professional side, right? And hence, if you bring the same degree or same value of recognition into the volunteering world as well, there is an inherent or a subconscious degree of comparison that all human beings end up bringing, right? So we consciously try avoiding that. We've tried different things. We've tried, we failed, we learn, right? That's how communities are built. You keep experimenting. You shouldn't hesitate to experiment, right? And all experiments are basically one volunteer would have said, I am sure this is what will work, right? And 3 others who probably haven't thought through said, yes, let's do it. So I think that's how most of the experiments are being run. We've tried, A, for sure, there is no, money involved, right? B, what we've done is there's a great amount of learning, right? Learning and growth is defined at the beginning, where we say, boss, listen. So what we've realized is 2 classic recipes for volunteering to fail is a volunteer going too fast or too slow, right? Too fast is also bad. Too slow, the others will get frustrated if the guy is just not on the same pace as the others, because most of us in the volunteering space, we're usually very fast, right? We don't have patience when it comes to execution, because we're also used to firefighting. You give us an event to pull off in 24 hours, we will. You give us an event to pull off in 24 weeks, we won't. That is the truth. So what we've seen is, too fast, too slow ends up to, either being kicked out or leads to, volunteers being burnt out, right? So defining growth or defining the journey of the volunteer is important. and that growth in terms of learning is an incentive itself. And for a larger community, all the communities that we here, the diversity is very big, right? The building of the network, both within the community and outside, is massive. So, we've had volunteers who are 16 years old. We've had volunteers who are 60 years old. And we've had volunteers who are even today volunteering from Helsinki or Berlin. We've got volunteers who are volunteering from Sikkim. We've got volunteers volunteering from Bangalore, right? And it's all forms. Men, women, we've got a good ratio of men, women. We've got a good ratio of tier 2, tier 3, right? So it's important for us to, also showcase what is the kind of network that they will also build, not just with fellow volunteers and evangelists in the community, but, the various initiatives that they will be involved in, right? For example, discussing something about a fireside chat with a Kunal chat, right? Not something that you would otherwise get. Here, you would actually be, representing an org that some of the bigger names in the ecosystem respect, and you would be able to chat with them. So the social capital, what Raj kept mentioning, right? You definitely earn that. What we've also done is we've tried every quarter we bring all volunteers together, right? We've tried using different names. We've just said let's all get together with visas. We've also tried using corporate-ish words, saying let's do a town hall or let's do an all hands meet. We've tried using different words, but different words, you bring different vibes with people, right? Because many of us have had a corporate past, we hate it. That's a different part. So what we've tried doing in those quarterly catch-ups, where we've got people, let's say hundreds of people from across cities coming together, we've tried also recognizing, the best performers that quarter, the initiators that really stood out, right? Call out people who've been consistent over a period. Call out people who, did something really big in the last 3 months. So acknowledging publicly is also very important. That has been one of the incentives. So we also launched something called the Star Box a couple of quarters ago. What we did was we said, let's not translate anything into money, but we can definitely keep aside some budget. It could be 500,000, 5,000, whatever it is. Let's, create a box, which is nothing but samples of say 5 to 10 D2C brands from our own community of startups. Let's put it into it. Let's give it out to folks. What happens? It's a win-win. There is something that brings a smile at the end of the day to the volunteer. There's also, our own brands that are very less heard that get visibility here, right? So we have tried that not just with the volunteers, also with some of the speakers and some of the guests that come and, be a part of our initiatives. We've completely moved away from that money being dealt with. We've started doing this where there's visibility to our, some of the lesser known startup brands as well. So these are a few things that we've tried, Nipul.
Got it. This is very interesting on the Starbucks idea. Also, I think you based on our past sort of conversation, I remember you telling about the T-shirt thing. Can you talk about that? How that becomes an incentive as well?
Oh yeah. So I'm sure some of you know many of the Head Start volunteers also, right? So of course, I'll tell a side joke later about Deepika Suhas. So, from a T-shirt perspective, that's been a big incentive, right? So at Head Start, you may have seen Head Start volunteers wear a black T-shirt that said "Time to Startup is now," right? We've been sticking to that for a decade. As a VIP, you don't get the T-shirt, number one, right? You go beyond your VIP tenure, you turn into a volunteer is when you earn that black T-shirt. Right? Everyone doesn't get a black Head Start Time to Startup is now T-shirt. We work with a lot of partners. We work with a lot of friends in the ecosystem, a lot of founders. Everyone gets a Head Start T-shirt at some point, right? Just that it will not be the black T-shirt, right? You may have seen many of the VCs that we worked closely with may have worn a Time to Startup is now T-shirt, but it would have been a maroon T-shirt. Some of the founders who've gone through our programs, our cohorts, would have probably worn a Time to Startup is now green T-shirt, right? So the black T-shirt is earned as a volunteer, and there's so much pride, to be honest, that every Head Starter still has. When he wears that Head Start, logo on his sleeve with that black T-shirt, because he knows that that is one T-shirt that everyone in the ecosystem doesn't get, he earns it by contributing to the ecosystem, by giving it back to the ecosystem. So that's something that we've done. It's still, Nipun, there are folks who, say, hey, I am now into my 4th month. When will I get my t-shirt? Right? So that's the first thing they ask. They don't ask, what tasks can I pick up this month? So that is also something that we've done for sure. Yeah.
Nice. I think I'll circle back to Suhas now. Suhas, would love to know, I think we've chatted separately on this as well. What's your view on, on incentives? And I think I'm sure social capital and, learning from the incentives, learning from the work is something that you would also sort of push for. But I want to know the, like on the monetary incentives and gifts and swags, and like, do you give different incentives to different volunteers? Would love to know your thoughts on that.
I started off from exactly like my personal ethos is very, very similar, that, volunteer driven initiative and incentive is very much in line with what Gautham and Raj mentioned. This is exactly how we started. But I feel, and in that side, I think, again, very similar, right? No one draws a salary, etc., etc. But personally, I think over the last 2 years, my thought process of this has changed and has only accelerated with Web3 coming in, right? The entire structure that is there, I think it's perfectly aligned for volunteer driven. So for folks who want to explore more posts, I'll also share some like fun stuff that I mentioned, but I want to just take this up a little more seriously, is where many of you who are building communities today do definitely explore DAOs. That is the model that we are, tending to, and we're going to be launching the roadmap very, very soon. But that is what we are moving to in 2022, right? And the reason also, I'll tell you why I feel like, it's probably something that might be at its peak and might die down because there are tons of DAOs coming up, right? But the reason I'm so bullish about it is, especially in traditional volunteer-driven organizations. I think that's where the 3 of our communities are very similar today. When we say, okay, hey, someone is contributing their time, and yes, definitely social capital is something that they get, they grow in the community, they meet a lot of folks, that is definitely there. But just like how you would have heard for creators, right? Everyone complains about, hey, exposure is not everything, right? There is something more to, of course, in volunteer-driven organizations, you're coming with that ethos, you're not coming with expectations. So that's where things align. But what if you could align things even better, right? You're creating tons of value, right? Startup communities like Head Start, communities like AJVC, product community like TPI, creating tons of value, right? What if some percentage, like 10% of this value, could go back to volunteers, right? Do you think they'll be more aligned towards it, right? That's why I'm super interested, and that's why we're probably exploring that. Wherein, how we think of it is probably raise, sponsorship and, create a treasury and give these guys tokens. That's a very, very crude way of putting it, like very, very simple LE5 way of putting it, but definitely explore. I'll share a link in the chat section also if anyone's interested to chat. So that is just one serious part of it. But for today in the Web2 world, the fun stuff that I mentioned, one of it is we use this app called Thunderpod, right? All volunteers get access. So it's like a gamified way of staying in touch. There are games they keep playing with. We have like a walking challenge, like there are some fitness freaks, right? So it's like social fitness, social gaming. So that is one thing that has worked well for us. Then we have this volunteer incentives in some sort, right? So we don't have, say, monetary incentives, but a lot of, like Gautham mentioned, swag, D2C brands, gifts, Amazon vouchers, etc. So we're pretty bullish on that. That is definitely something we do. Ruchit mentions he wants a t-shirt by contributing to your community, Gautham. So maybe, you could DM Gautham and check out Head Start posted. So these are 2 things. So we are very, very bullish on those kind of stuff as well. And second, or the third incentive, which has been working for us, for folks who are joining in a little early, right? Or people who have also broken into product, right? These are 2 kinds of persona. The third one is, can we make specific intros, specific referrals to help them grow in their career, right? So beyond like their own personal, definitely social capital, and they'll get inbound. But there are certain doors which I know, like a lot of people ask us, say, is top tier tech degree important for product? Is, graduating from an MBA college important for product? It's very easy for me to come and say, hey, no, it's not that important, but it is a real challenge and threshold, right? There are some doors that open up only post top tier degree. We all agree, like whether, like I'm probably saying it in public, many people don't say it, but that's something we all agree to, right? That is the ethos we started, but can we help more people there, right? Can we actually define more outcomes and help? So I feel if you can start with the volunteers, that is also a huge win. If you can help a volunteer break into a top tier startup, that's a huge win for that volunteer. He is going to believe in the power of a community a lot more. And many people probably have heard of this from blogs, from social, etc. Once it happens to you, start believing, right? It's not magic. So same way, right? We all probably don't believe in something till it actually happens to us. I think that is the third biggest win. The rest of it, yeah, I think it's small. We definitely have more of these virtual sessions, virtual grab chai sessions. That's what we call it, where volunteers interact with each other. We have the town hall sessions. We have board game nights. Now that we moved it online, it becomes easy, right? For anyone who's interested, who plays Catan offline, check out catalyst.io, right? So that's somewhere you can play it online. So bunch of stuff. That's what I said. I think we try making it more of like a friendship. At least come make friends and go. And volunteering becomes the side outcome of that. So that's how these are certain initiatives in the Web2, but we are very, very bullish on how we can align incentives on the Web3 side.